All right, thank everyone for coming today. Thank everyone for coming today. Thank you all for coming today. Today is the last day of this series of talks on the Diamond Sutra. We'll be looking at chapter 17, but we'll pick up again in the spring with about another 10 discussions, and we'll finish up the last chapters of the Diamond Sutra. Today we're looking at chapter 17, and this is quite a long chapter, and there's a lot of different things going on here, and there's really more things happening in here than there is time to cover. So I'll just cover some of the parts that strike me, and these are right at the front. I didn't even get very far into it before I was like, ooh, I want to talk about that and that and that and that, because there's so much good stuff here. And again, the very first words of the chapter are the title. And the title of this is, "At no point is there I." And this isn't the idea that, oh, I don't exist. Obviously we exist. We have a body, we have sensations, we have experiences. But the thing that doesn't exist is this concept of I that we think continues on. We think there's this continuous, unchanging I because the sound is the same, because the word is the same from morning till night. Somehow in our brain, we assume that this thing is unchanging. It sounded like I in the morning, and it sounds like I in the evening, so it's the same thing. But it's not. We are constantly changing. There is no fixed moment. There's no fixed thing. There's no fixed me that we can grab onto and say, this is the same thing that was here in the morning. Daehaeng Sunim used the term, the principle of relativity. But in Korean, that's what it seems to translate like. But it's more like the principle of interconnected relativity, or interconnected, I'm not sure what the right word would be. We are all interconnected, but as soon as we meet each other, as soon as we respond to each other, we change. The me that was here this morning isn't here anymore. It's been changed and transformed by my whole day's experience. The most extreme example of this that we normally see is in the case of soldiers, and particularly soldiers who went off to a hard war or an ugly war. And it was a really common dream among them that they would go back home and life would pick up where it was left off. And one of the things that you hear so many people struggled with is the fact that life didn't pick up where it left off. Life was gone. There was no going back to it. The example is a little bit, maybe the example seems a little bit light, but if you look at the TV series, or the movie series, Lord of the Rings, right? That isn't just a fantasy. That was written by a guy who was in the trenches in World War I. And so, this whole burden, this whole weight he carries. And the four people who saved the world, at the very end of the movie, they're the outsiders. Right? They're the ones who can't go back because they've been changed by everything they experience. And that's actually the reality of our life, is we're changed by everything we go through. There's no going back. It's like in a dream, if you've ever been in one location in a dream, and then you realize you're not in that location anymore, and you try to go back to that place, you can never go back to it. All night long, you'll be struggling trying to go back to that place, and you can never get back there. And somehow that's a reflection of reality, is that there's only forward. Everything that's in the past is past. It doesn't exist anymore. And this concept of I that we carry around with us falls squarely in the middle of that. it's a useful tool, and you have to have, psychologically, you have to have the sense of I to sort of stand up for yourself, to figure out, what do I need? It's a useful concept. What do I need? Where am I going? What do I want to do with my life? We need this concept. But the problem is that we don't need it as much as we use it. He's doing this, she's doing that, I deserve this, this happened to me. We use accidentally this concept of I much more than we actually need it. It's like a tool or a wrench that instead of using it, once or twice a day, we carry it around with us all day, and don't let anybody touch my wrench, kind of a thing. So Daehaeng Sunim always talks about, for people who are still finding their way, she expresses the basics of spiritual practice in terms of, you have this connection, you have this, you can use the word true self or inherent nature, and she uses the word Juingong, which in Korean is like the main character, right? It's the Jason Bourne or the John Wayne of the movie. It's the one that's going to be there from the beginning to end, that's making everything happen. And in Korean, it really clicks with a lot of people sometimes. Oh, right, okay. This essence is really doing everything. So we all have this. And so she says, okay, rely on that and trust what's coming up. Because if you get sick, if you feel ill, if you feel confused, a lot of times our first impulse is to look for something else. Right? Oh, I don't feel so good. I got to go to the pharmacy, or I should go see the doctor, or I don't know how to handle this problem. I should go ask him, or I should go ask her, or I need more money, or I have too many bills. So the answer must be to earn more money. How do I earn more money? And just jumping into that without entrusting that problem first, without entrusting that situation first. So one of the things she always said was, entrust what happens and then observe, pay attention. So in part, you learn to experiment, you learn to see what's happening. So I entrusted this feeling, and then what actually happened. And after a while, you begin to notice things. Sometimes you notice things change right away. Sometimes it's like, I can't say when it happened, but it was gone eventually. I entrusted this situation, and it wasn't like turning a switch, but by the end of the day, things were better, or by the end of the month, things were better. And the first 20 times, the first 100 times this happens, you're like, oh, that was fortunate, or what a coincidence. But after a while, you're like, oh, wait a minute, okay, this isn't really a coincidence. And so one of the things she said was, pay attention, observe. You have to be paying attention to notice what's happening. And when you're paying attention, one of the things you'll notice is that how much trouble shows up around this thought of I. If something happens to me and I start getting labels, this happened because he did this to me, or she didn't do this, or it's his fault, or it's her fault, or it's the government's fault, or it's God's fault, or it's whatever. Once I start giving race to that thought of I, things can get really, I is the door to stupidity, right? A lot of stupid reactive things happen after I. One of my first experiences in Anyang was taking the bus downtown and seeing the bus and a taxi almost hit each other on right over by Anyang Daegyo here. And the bus and the taxi stopped in the middle of the road, and the bus and the taxi driver started fighting each other in the middle of the road. And I'm sitting there on the bus going, oh my. But, anything like that, he did this to me. It's his fault I'm late. Or, that's something he made. There's always that thought there. When we start paying attention, we begin to notice, oh, I deserve this. I want to do this. I achieved this. Whenever that I shows up, things go sideways. Things don't work out so well. And we'll talk about it. It comes up a little bit in the end of this chapter, but one of the big ones is I want to behave well. I want to help other people. Right? That sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a good thing. But when I give rise to that thought of I want to do this, I want to help other people, I want to make their lives better, that I still causes problems. It still causes things to go a little bit sideways, or a lot sideways sometimes. There was, well, that's okay, never mind. That's not a good example. So many problems have been caused by people trying to do good things, but it was a reflection of their fixed idea about what was good. If they started off by entrusting the idea, oh, I want to help other people, and then let that idea sink down within them, and then responded according to what they felt, what they connected with, things would have been much better situation. Well, one of the things about this I that's weird is it's got a function, or it's got an effect that's a lot like blame. Is if I blame somebody else, oh, he did this, she did this, the president did this. The second I say that, mentally, somehow 100% of the situation lies with the other person. He's the reason I'm late today. Just as soon as I say that, it's 100% on him or on her or on the world or on my parents or whatever. And I've done two things. I've said, I don't have any part in that, right? It's all him. And at the same time, the other effect of that is all the power to change it, all the power to make things better is with him or her or them as well. If only I had had better parents, if only my country had been wealthier, if only that, then my life would have been better. As soon as I say that, I've divorced myself from any power or any responsibility or any connection. And things aren't going to go particularly well after that. And for some reason, this I accidentally has the same absolutist kind of thing. I'm doing this. Well, there's no me that's doing anything, right? If I pick up this cup, 10 billion lives. I don't know how many cells there are in my body. It's probably more than billion. It's probably trillions. 10 trillion lives just work together to pick up that cup. If I take a drink of water, who knows how many cells and bacteria and everything are working to absorb that water. And so there's no me that's doing anything. Sometimes Sunims would go to Daehaeng Sunim and say, oh, I want to go out in the woods and practice by myself. And she would basically say something like, okay, don't wear any clothes that anybody else made. Don't eat any food that anybody else made. And, like this, because everything you're wearing, everything you're eating, everything you're basically doing, somebody else has contributed to that as well. There's no me, there's no I that did 100% of that. And so it's like so much trouble is relieved just by letting go of this thought of I, just by relaxing it. So this idea that at no point is there I, it's just, let's see, what is that? 6 words. But there's so much stuff right in those 6 words. Stuff to do and stuff to not do. It's all leaking out of those 6 words. Okay, let me skip ahead of what I planned and take a look at page 201 to Ibek Il Jokeo, and look at the very last paragraph, the 3rd paragraph. I'll go ahead and read it. How was all of this possible? Because what is called Tathagata is the working together of all things seen and unseen, together as one, flowing as one. And so take a look at page 203. Again, the 3rd paragraph. Subhuti, because Tathagata is one mind, there is nothing to be gained. In the midst of this utterly profound, peerless enlightenment of one mind, there is nothing to call awakened or unawakened. Thus, Tathagata, which is one with everything, teaches that all lives and things throughout the universe function together non-dually as one whole. This is a really interesting concept that Daehaeng Sunim uses here. It shows up in this chapter and it shows up in later chapters, but this idea of Tathagata, or in Korean we say Yore, normally it's treated in English translations as a title, like Buddha or Major or Colonel or something like this. The Tathagata Shakyamuni. They treat it like a title, but the way Daehaeng Sunim uses it and explains it, it's not the title, it's the whole functioning as one. And so it was quite tricky to translate in some places, because the Hangul, the Korean, is literally saying, Tathagata is saying, present tense, is saying. Well, it sounds like normally the way you want to translate this, it sounds like the Buddha, it should be saying, Buddha, the Buddha is saying, am saying. It's like almost like speaking of himself in the 3rd person, which is kind of weird. It's sort of like the Queen Victoria sort of stuff. One is not amused kind of thing. But that's not the way she's using Tathagata. This whole is saying this. This isn't me as this lump of flesh saying this, right? Right now it's the whole. This whole one mind functioning, this whole flowing oneness is saying that X, Y, Z, and that's the way Tathagata appears in Daehaeng Sunim's translation of the Diamond Sutra. It's quite extraordinary. And so we see a lot of places in this chapter where this chapter, okay, on page 195, we see this idea that's a little bit it's a little bit surprising. So page 195, the 1st paragraph, I'll go ahead and read it. In the same way, Subhuti, if even a bodhisattva carries around fixed ideas of themselves, or subtly sees others as existing apart from themselves, then they cannot function as a bodhisattva. You have to free yourself from fixed views and ideas. You have to transcend the shackles of time, and then you can become one with everything, and will truly know that there are no separate unenlightened beings or bodhisattvas. So this idea that if a bodhisattva thinks, I'm doing well, normally we think of a bodhisattva as being one stage below a Buddha, right? So if even a bodhisattva thinks, I've done a good job, I'm helping other people, then she said, they're not able to function as a bodhisattva. And the way this reads in normal English translations is as a cruder form of this. Ha 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 ha, I'm a bodhisattva. Kind of like proud and arrogant. But I don't think that's what was meant here. This is, because the idea is, well, if somebody got to the level of a bodhisattva, how could they be arrogant about being a bodhisattva, right? They're already at what we would think of as a very high spiritual level. And so it's not that they're being arrogant, it's that they still have some division between themselves and others. They're still accidentally thinking of others as needing help. I'm here, this person's there. I'm awakened, this person is unawakened. Or I'm a human and this being is an animal, right? And there's still this, consciously or unconsciously, they're still carrying around this idea of themselves as being separate from other people. So we see it quite a bit in the Diamond Sutra. If you have ideas of yourself, of I, but also as other people being, a higher level or a lower level of these beings, these people don't live very long. So humans are only here for a short time. Your human life is fairly short, so you have to get this done right away, this life. But that's still this idea of a fixed time, something that only exists for a short time. But if we're all one flowing whole, then there is no time, right? There is no division of time because there's nothing that starts or stops. It may change shape, but it doesn't start or stop. There's no separate piece to pull out. So we'll see this more going forward, but this idea that, and this is meant, in this context, it's meant very positively. I need to help other people. I need to save other people. I want to do good for other people. Even that thought can lead to trouble because it's still coming from this I. It's still, unconsciously, I'm separating myself from everything else. So even that thought, when we become aware of it, we need to let go of it. We need to entrust it. And that's always a important kind of basic point of spiritual practice, is that we're not concerned about having thoughts. Right? Daehaeng said so many times in her regular Dharma talks, if you didn't have thoughts, you'd be just a lump of wood or a corpse. Right? Because we're interacting, we have thoughts. My throat is dry, so I'm thirsty. Oh, I'd like some water. Oh, that was nice water. Or that water was too cold or too hot or just right. Whatever we encounter, if it's a little bit outside our normal range, we have thoughts. I want to catch the 9:10 bus. Oh shoot, I missed the 9:10 bus. Now I got to wait till the 9:30 bus. Or whatever it is, we have thoughts. And so just having thoughts isn't a problem. It's not a problem at all. It's a natural reaction because of this interaction. It's just a question of what do we do with them, right? If I carry around the thought that, oh, I bumped into this person and they made me drop my phone and then I missed my bus and it's their fault, and if we carry around that thought, then that's not going to do me any good or them any good. But okay, wait a minute. We're paying attention. I have this thought. That's really keeps showing up. I need to relax that. I need to let go of that. And, letting go it's easy to think of letting go as this, getting rid of. Because, who doesn't want to get rid of the uncomfortable stuff, right? Who doesn't want to get rid of the frustrating and painful stuff? But, this is letting go. I'm not trying to grasp it. I'm not trying to throw it away. I'm just not going to feed it extra energy. Right? I'm going to try, as much as I can, try to relax that urge to dwell on it. Try to relax that urge to obsess on it or to focus on it. And just say, okay, my true nature, my true self is the one, was where this came from, so I'll let it take care of stuff. And this is all experience. This is all, little bit by little bit by little bit, your awareness and your faith and your trust deepen. If your trust and your faith just happened instantly, that would be wonderful. But then I'd say that you practiced really hard in your past life. Now you're just seeing the results of all your sweat from your past life, if that happens, which is great, but it's still, again, not truly just an instant thing. You got to work at stuff. All right. So let me take a look in the little bit of time I have left. There's two really interesting ideas in pages 191 and 193. This is, so Subhuti's, the first paragraph is Subhuti's question. This is Subhuti's starting point for the whole sutra, right here. Subhuti wants to help other people, right? Subhuti has a sense, I would assume Subhuti, at the very beginning of this sutra, Subhuti was somebody who had a very deep sense of this non-dual nature. And he had a deep sense of the suffering that people were causing themselves. You don't have to look very far to see extreme examples of that. I think I gave the example last time of how militarized societies work sometimes, where they start saying, these people, this ethnicity or this group aren't human. They aren't as good as us. And boy, anytime a country or a land starts saying these people aren't human, nothing good happens next, right? We can get rid of these people, we can kill these people, we can expel these people because they are subhuman or half human or they're dirty, whatever they are. But if you look at history, anytime a country starts saying that, before very long, it all comes back on the people starting it. Right? Anytime you start seeing somebody set up that kind of division, they're in line for a lot of pain and suffering. So even, somebody, you don't have to even be Subhuti's level to be looking around and saying, oh, don't do that. That's gonna hurt, And so Subhuti is somebody who's looked around and said, how can I help other people? How can I help them get to this point where they can taste this flowing whole, where they can experience that transformation that comes from touching this? And so the Buddha says in the second paragraph, if men and women awaken to this unsurpassed one mind and are able to respond fully like this, then naturally all Buddhas will be there together with them, one with them, supporting their efforts to help unenlightened beings. The minds of those beings too will begin to move in tune with one mind. So if you're practicing sincerely and you're really working at getting in touch with this one mind, then the whole, here Daehaeng Sunim says all Buddhas, and I think that's I can't say anything about whether they're there or not, but I think you could also say the energy of the whole responds, because you're functioning as the whole. Whatever you meet picks up on that energy, and to me, I don't know if this is if you've ever seen how a car clutch works. It's two plates that are spinning. And when the one plate connects with the other plate, with the spinning plate, it spins too. It's the same way if you have a whirlpool, right, in the stream or a river, and you throw something around in the water that floats around the edge of the whirlpool, it too begins to spin around. That was my experience around Daehaeng Sunim, is that even regardless of where I was at, if I was just nearby her, it felt like my whole being, that my whole energy was beginning to move in a healthier, higher level form. And I think that's exactly what she was describing here, is that, so we talk about wanting to help other people. And it's easy to look at social work kinds of things. And this is not to put down on that. If somebody's hungry, giving them food is what they need right now. But also being able to help them through this fundamental connection. You can't ignore that. That's something that's really critical to people, that's desperately needed. We talk about virtue and merit, right, versus karma. Good karma can be thought of as like more food. Virtue and merit is the idea to completely step above the level I'm at, so that I see why am I hungry? What do I need to do to not be hungry? What do I need to do to change my whole life? And then the opportunities for that. Because, just wanting something doesn't guarantee it. A lot of times we don't have the opportunities to do it. We don't have the know-how or the spark or the whatever it is. And so many of those opportunities are us encountering something else, some energy or some situation or some person or something that provides a way to really change our lives, or makes a very substantial change in our lives. So, all right. A little bit late, but let me look at page 193. There's one really interesting, fun idea here. So, although I, as the manifestation of one mind, can, of course, save unenlightened beings from the suffering they are currently trapped in due to the chains of karma, if they are to be free of future suffering, they must learn to become one with this fundamental mind, so that they have the ability to free themselves. The fact is, even though I dissolve their present suffering, if they don't know how to do this for themselves, then life after life, they will continue to fall back into the bondage of suffering. Well, this is kind of a little bit radical, interesting statement here, where she's saying, from the perspective of the Buddha or somebody who's very deeply enlightened, they can actually help people, they can save people from their current suffering. The problem is, even though they save them, as soon as they save them, they jump back into suffering. Because on the one hand, you can describe karma as is constantly arising stuff. So even though it arises and I solve one instance, in the next moment, more still keeps coming back out. And if my consciousness doesn't change, if my spiritual awareness doesn't change, then I'm going to just go do the habits that got me in this trouble in the first place. The most extreme example is liver transplants, right? Some people's liver fails, and so they get a liver transplant, and they don't actually stop drinking or taking drugs. Right? They may have a new liver right now, but it's not going to last long if they don't stop drinking. And it's the same thing with our level of consciousness. If we don't change if we haven't changed our way of thinking, if we haven't changed the things that caused us to create the problems we're looking at, then even though somebody is able to help us, even though they're able to save us, our habits of thought are going to create the same problems over and over again. So we gotta dissolve these habits. It's not very exciting, and it's tough and it's tiresome, but just dissolving the stuff that's coming up, dissolving the habits, even if we don't know where to go. We don't have to know where to go or what to do. If we work at dissolving the habits of thought that we're encountering right now, then because this is the energy of the whole, what comes next will be more harmonious. Even if it's not the perfect solution, if it's more in touch with this whole, then it's going to be more harmonious, and it's going to be less awkward and more comfortable and healthier for us. But we all have this capability. We all have this potential. And so it's up to us to take whatever's coming out and keep entrusting it back and keep entrusting it back. And step by step by step, we can find our path forward. All right, I'll go ahead and stop here for today. Thank you very much.